Hi! Oh, this video is not easy for me to do. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Victoria Radford and I am a medical esthetician and makeup artist based in Toronto, Canada. I also own a beauty brand called Radford, and I also have an obsession with plants. Now, interesting fun fact, when I first started dabbling in YouTube, I thought like a subject matter that a lot of people are Googling, and one of the things that people were really interested in were two particular plants. That hasn't changed yet. People are still very interested in these two particular plants. They're both variegated monsteras. One is an Albo Borsigiana and the other is a Thai constellation. So I did a video on what the difference between the two of them are about 8 months ago now. And it's the only video that really did much. So as of today, I believe it's at about 10,000 views, which is a lot for me. I think my average is about 100. So clearly people are really interested in these plants. I have been wanting to do an update on them because the interesting thing about those particular plants is you're not really purchasing, unless you have thousands of dollars, you're not purchasing a plant, you're purchasing a leaf. I consider myself an experienced plant owner and didn't think much of it. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and I do travel a lot. I ended up traveling a lot more than I thought I was going to be this winter, and I was actually gone twice for a month at a time. And I got home about 2 weeks ago to extremely unhappy plants. So I shot a little clip called All My Plants Are Dying. So for the moment you have all been waiting for, I don't know which one to start with. Should I start with the worst case scenario or the best case scenario? They're both in pretty unhappy places, but I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do to fix them. And in another 6 months, you're going to see a very different little plant. Let's start with the Albo, because I feel like this one came to me the most upset. Don't you just love that marbling on the leaf? I love this plant. I just love how white and crisp the white is and how green the green is. So this little bottom cut leaf that I paid hundreds of dollars for, because that's how much they cost, came with completely rotted roots. But you can see it also had some stem rot, which, you know, there's not a lot of videos on stem rot. That was the most difficult thing for me because the node is so small. Let me tell you what happened. So there was stem rot. I had to take her out of what I had repotted her in, and it became an emergency situation. I cut off all of her roots. You can see here, and I'll show you when I pull her out, but right here, see, that's where her old roots came out, and I cut them all off because they were rotted. And then I put tons of cinnamon on both sides of the stem, and I attached her to a moss pole to keep her up, as you can see, not touching any water. It wasn't in here, it was in a little, okay, hang on. I have to show you because I feel like this is important stuff we're talking about. So because she didn't have any any roots anymore and there was no other leaves, don't pay attention to these yet, that's later in the story. So she was just this one leaf with no roots. And so I attached her to a pole, I kept her out of the water, I put her in a little tiny propagation bottle, and then I put this exact pothos leaf, which loves This pothos leaf loves its elbow friend and has just been living its best life as roommates for the last 8 months. So for a very long time, nothing happened. Nothing. Like it was like just like a old rotted node with the pothos in the water, and I would fill the water up and just like nothing was happening. Those are some pretty good roots. I'm very proud of you. Look at those roots. Those are strong roots. Okay, so now you can see, let me take this little apparatus off. This was the original root system that came out of here. I propped her up in the little dish like this, and nothing happened for a really long time. And then all of a sudden, you can see where it came out. I could see just a tiny bit of white coming out of this old, sad, rotted node. I'm sure if you own a plant like this and you love plants as much as I do, you can imagine I just started crying. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna be okay. And so she very slowly grew a very, like not a lot of root. And she stayed in there for a really, really, really long time, to the point where I was like, oh, I remember. She started sprouting the teeniest, tiniest little, looked like it was going to be a leaf. And I was really worried that it was just in water. I was really worried that she was just in water and she wasn't getting enough nutrients to be able to push out a leaf. And so I pulled an audible and I did something that I don't, like I've never actually owned, I've never done this before with this particular plant. It was such an expensive plant. And I really love you and I really want you to grow into an entire plant. So I decided to put a ton of leca with some perlite. Again, not enough nutrients though, and I knew that. And I even kept her pothos friend and I put her all in this orchid container. And then I put her in this bigger container and then still continue to water prop. So I would keep the water kind of like up to here as a way to not shock her going into soil, because that's what happened the first time. So I was a little nervous. But then I left, and I do know that this is what happened. So water propagated plants don't, like, if they live in water, there's no danger of root rot. I mean, my theory is they don't mind it if they're living in water constantly and just filling it up. What they don't like at all is to dry out and then be put back in a pool of water, which is exactly what happened both times I went away for an entire month in the middle of winter in Canada, and it just was not humid enough in our bathroom. And even though I had someone like coming and changing the humidifier as much as I possibly could, but she was used to a humidifier running 24/7. Anyway, this leaf just started to curl, but I was so proud of her for pushing it out. But you can see she's like not happy and she's all curled. And then this leaf, didn't make it. And then that's when I knew, well, that's when I did my video, All My Plants Are Dying. And that's also when I knew I probably needed to put her in soil, get her some good nutrients so that she can continue growing and feel more supported and more healthy, right? So that's what we're gonna do today. I am going to keep her in the same orchid cup because this is a perfect size for a brand new like leaf albo. They like to be like quite snuggled in there. And I'm going to also reuse the leca, which a lot of people are like, you should use new leca. There's absolutely no root rot on here whatsoever. She's very happy. She grew some really happy roots. I'm actually really surprised there's no root rot at all. Okay, so I'm going to put her back in, but this time, and I'll put mostly leca in the bottom because that's where all the water roots are. There's also perlite. I'm also removing her pothos friend, which is a scary proposition, but she's not gonna live with a pothos for the rest of her life, so she needs to start learning to be an independent girl, right? I added in a layer of perlite. Normally I would mix it in. This is not a strategy. There is perlite already mixed in, but I wanted some more. I don't know, I was just feeling it. And then on top, I'm going to just do leca. I like doing leca on top. It wards away any pests because there's no moisture. Clay balls, which is what leca is, wicks away moisture and makes it an unpleasant environment for any pests to exist. You are ready to forge your own destiny. I believe in you. And there's more soil in there. It's kind of mixed in. It was like leca, soil, which was cactus, succulent, as well as an orchid mix. I did remove a little bit of the bark. Bark does have a tendency to hold on to moisture a lot more. There is some bark in here, but if I saw a lot of it, I removed it. And then I did perlite and the leca on top. Now, if you'll join me in the bathroom, which is like my little greenhouse. Hi, don't mind, we're doing some renovations in here, but this is where I keep all of my expensive plants. And it's warmer in the bathroom than it is in the office. So all of these things good. I used a teeny tiny amount of Miracle Grow Quick Start, like less than a tablespoon for this entire jug. And then ideally, I don't use, what do you call it, mineral water. Obviously this is not Fiji water. I drank it and then put tap water in here. However, what I do is I leave the tap water in here for more than 24 hours so that all of the things that plants don't like die off. So let's water her now because she was very dry, and I'll give her a good drink because those bottom roots are still technically water roots. This is like phase 2 of her healing. Excellent. And if you're wondering about Mr. Pothos, I tucked him in right here in the brand new Pothos apartment. So he's got lots of new roommates. Whenever you repot or transition any of your plants, you have to have a lot of patience. There is an initial shock that happens because plants just like to grow where they're planted. So you have to have patience and keep an eye on it, see how everyone is doing in their new home. Okay, are you ready for the tie? Let's do it. Okay, my tie was a different story, and she's a big girl. So this tie was a top cutting, which in general, you're going to pay a little bit more for a top cutting when you buy any plant that has some fenestrations in it, which this one has like one little baby one. But that is a sign of the plant being a little bit older, like compared to my Albo, which is like, doesn't even have like anything. It just looks like a leaf. So this plant's a little bit older, but the top cutting only had one aerial root. I was actually surprised when I pulled it out that it wasn't rooted more, which is fine. I hadn't rooted a tie before. And what I learned, it's so funny because I like deep dove into the internet, and obviously, I don't know if you're into ties, which if you're watching this video, you probably are. There's a lot of speculation on the fact that people think that ties will be sold in like Walmarts and Lowe's very soon because of Fiesta Farms talking about how they're growing them. I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because you can kind of tell that this plant is not like a real plant. Like, I mean, it is a real plant, obviously, but it was created in a lab. That's one of the main differences. That's a pretty monstrous difference between the Thai and the Albo. And so it has these kind of like unnaturally, insanely thick, big roots. And it takes a lot of energy for a plant to make roots like that. So when my plant came with only one aerial root that was about this long, I was like, okay, I didn't know what would happen to the plant, but I knew I needed to root the plant up. So originally I put it in a container about this big, which was also an orchid container because I hear that these guys are very susceptible to root rot. And I could see that there was a little tiny place where the leaf was going to come out. This new leaf was going to come out. Shall we open her up so I can really tell you this? It's a very dramatic story as well. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The reason I don't think this plant is capable of being mainstream is because the roots that it has grown, and it's still like technically just a top cutting, like it's not even really on its way. It's still very unhappy, but you'll be able to see not only, this is like an 8-inch pot, and it was kind of like, they like to be cozy, so I didn't want to give it something too big. And it was very difficult to find a 10-inch pot. So I spent way too much money on this on Amazon, and because I needed a 10-inch pot, and there's no grates. Anyway, it's like difficult. And when I've seen full grown ones, you can see like they're monstrous plants. So if you think that you're gonna be able to, like, they're just, the root system is twice as big as the plant is. And the good news is I actually think that this plant is pretty easy to take care of. You just need to understand what you're getting into. So if you receive a leaf cutting with a tiny little root, you may need to give yourself some patience before the plant is going to be able to push out a new leaf. We have reached a critical point in the decision-making process. There's absolutely no way I can get her out of here without cutting off all of those roots that you worked so hard to make. And she's probably not gonna be happy for a little bit after I repot her. I think that I have to cut these roots, and because I have to get her out of here. She can't live in here. She's not thriving in here. I chose a cozy home rather than a home that was too big and it was too cozy. Like I kind of shoved her in here because the roots were there's so many roots. And now I can tell that these roots that I shoved in, there is a little bit of rot. I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Maybe. I need to pull her out of here and see what's happening. That was incredibly painful, but she's out. I did have to cut off this like main artery that was a very healthy root. But there was no way I could fish this out the little hole. And now I can see much better what is going on. So this was the original kind of root ball that you worked so hard to make and could barely fit in that pot. And now we're just gonna repot her. I am gonna rinse her off a little bit so I can see better what's going on, but I think I already know. It's just like she's not getting enough nutrients. There was just leca in there. Her roots were really like balled up and shoved in, so not enough oxygen getting to the roots. And just the fact that she needs to make all these roots really delayed her leaf creating process. So now in her new home, she'll be able to be happier and get into it. So I'll be right back. I'm just gonna rinse her off. Upon further inspection, she's a happy, healthy plant. Let's give her a brand new home. Now, the dangerous thing about this is it doesn't have an inner cage. However, it does have a drainage hole at the bottom that comes off. So, listen, I'm just as nervous as you are. We're going to try our best and do this together. I have a friend who has a Thai and it's thriving and lives in, it doesn't even look like it is chunky aeroid mix. So who can say? I know I'm gonna give it so much love and I feel like this is the right size for her to spread her wings and fly. I have this much leca in the bottom. I might do a little bit more and then I'm gonna do a layer of perlite. Okay, so about 1/3 of leca and then let's do a layer of perlite. Obviously the perlite is going to sink in around, ooh, dusty, sink in around the leca. And I don't want it to go to the bottom because perlite does hold on to moisture. Let's do a little more leca. And then my chunky mix is more perlite, orchid bark, and cactus mix. And then I'm also going to mix in some leca with that. We'll keep it super chunky. Every once in a while I take out some of the bark because that retains a lot of water and there is a lot of bark in here at this point because I do that with every plant. I'm going to try, because I know how big she's going to get and I don't want to repot her again anytime soon because plants don't like being repotted. So I'm going to try and keep this part, which is where she was cut off. This is the top cutting. She's gonna continue to grow from the back. So I'm gonna try and keep this part as close to the front as possible without kind of like shoving her up to the front. Okay, I just placed the pole around where I want it. And I'm going to attach her to the pole before I continue because then all of the rest of the soil is just going to keep her in place. There, around right there. Now I'm going to hold her up because all of her leaves are very heavy and I'm just going to pour in the rest of my leca perlite soil mixture. And I want the stem to stay outside of the soil. She's so big, you can't even see. I did a layer of bark actually because I had quite a bit of space in between where her roots were and where the top of the pot was. And so I did a layer of bark, well, bark soil-ish, because I have so much bark left. And then I'm going to do one more layer of leca just on the top so that she doesn't get any pests, but she's looking really, ooh, that's heavy, really happy in her new home. And I know that was rough. We'll do some of the same stuff we did for the Albo. The quick start, I'll give her a nice big drink tonight and get the humidity back up in the bathroom. So it's almost spring now. She's gonna be fine. And I'm very much looking forward to updating you about how much she'll be living life. I used a Coco Core pole because I like this one because as she grows, because she's gonna get humongous, as she grows I can add a separate piece in the top without having to, you know, rip this out and put in a different type of pole. So that was a plus for me. Whew, that was a wonderful long day and I'm like emotional. I feel so much better, and I know that if you love plants and you spend a day kind of like taking care of your plants, it's so therapeutic. So thank you for hanging out with me while I gave myself a little therapy and my plants a little bit of love. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, or let's just talk about plants. What ones do you have? Where did you get them? Oh, that was my biggest question on my last video. Where did I get these plants? Facebook Marketplace. I'm not a big Facebook fan. I barely go on it, but Facebook Marketplace, there's actually a girl if you live in Canada, her name is Ella, and I didn't buy either of these from Ella. I wish I had. I bought them before I found out about her, and now I've joined all these groups, and she's the absolute best and takes very good care of her plants, and there is absolutely no way that either of my plants would have come with any kind of difficulties if I got them from her. But I did get this plant from a really sweet girl who I really like, and I'll also tag her. She doesn't get albos as much as other plants. She gets some really beautiful strawberry shakes if you're into those, and obviously ties. And I think she does get albos every once in a while. So I'll tag them both, and then you can reach out, and I will talk to you soon. I hope you have a wonderful evening and a great week. Mwah. I have dirt all over my hands. It's the best feeling.